So let me kind of talk about this. So you are surrounded by business owners and entrepreneurs with money. Like, I would imagine that you are surrounded with people that have wealth. You have investors for, you and your company, and you talk into people's lives that have wealth and money. And so let's talk about that. Because I'm sure that's a topic. I think you've written blogs about it and articles about wealth, riches, money, and the kingdom of heaven. So talk to us about that and the balance of that and the struggles of that, because people would say, well, the more wealthy you are, it makes it harder for you to enter the kingdom, right? So talk to us about that.
Well, yeah, I think Jesus said that, and I do think I do think there's some reality to that to some extent. Although I don't think money is inherently a bad thing. I know a lot of wealthy people who deal with that, but it is a burden. I think sometimes it can be a burden, and I guess if you look historically, if you look at, I'm reading through the book of Deuteronomy right now, and if you look at the Israelites when they came out of Egypt, what God wanted from them and what they constantly screwed up and what we constantly screw up is God wanted their trust and their dependence on him. Because when we are under that covering, when we're dependent on Christ, when we're dependent on our Creator, we are actually functioning in our design as God designed us. And I think anything, wealth or I mean, we can make idols of anything. We look at the Israelites and they God's literal presence is in their midst, and they melt down all their jewelry and make a golden calf and bow down and worship it. And we think, what kind of morons are these people? Right. And then God goes, that like you do that every day, right? And so I think we are capable of making idols out of anything, and money is obviously one of those things that we can easily we can trade in our dependence on God for our ability to just solve our own problems and figure out our own issues or buy our way out of things. And so I think that's something that we all have to be cognizant of. It's a human issue. It's not a wealth issue. And I've seen people with tens of millions of dollars do that very well, and I've seen people with smaller amounts of money become dependent on it, right? And so I think we just have to be cognizant of the human heart's ability to fashion idols out of anything and bow down and worship them. And so I do think it's a special challenge for extremely wealthy people not to become dependent on their wealth, or not to lean back into their wealth, and to stay firmly focused on God. But I don't think wealth in and of itself is a bad thing or something that we should shun. But I do think the more assets God gives to us in our control, the more responsibility we have. And the more we have to keep our heart humble and dependent on him. So those are typically the conversations that we have.
I think it's great. I think it's about dependency and it's about obedient, and those are two things that we don't like to talk a lot about, right? To be dependent and to be obedient. It's like, no, I want to be free and I want to be independent. Right. That's what we want. So
and I think, Brett, we think that Christian growth too is about becoming. I mean, like you've got kids, you've got 4 kids, right? The more they grow physically, the less dependent they become on you, and eventually they leave the home. But for spiritual growth, I think it's the exact opposite. It's about rooting ourselves deeper and deeper into Christ. As we grow spiritually, we don't become less dependent on the gospel. In fact, we should become more and more dependent on the gospel. And so I think the trajectory of Christian growth is deeper into dependence. And that's what a mature Christian is. It's somebody who realizes that apart from Christ, they're a hot mess,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You wrote an article that kind of fits this. It's about workism. And you talked about the dangers of workism. So what does that mean? What is workism?
Yeah, workism. We actually work. Well, I've got my shirt on today, North Central University. I'm on the board of regents at North Central University. We do a lot of work with them up there. Well, we've got a group of students that help us with our website and our content development and stuff up from North Central. Some business students that do a great job. But that was one of the topics they threw at me. And workism was not a concept that I had heard of. And so I had to go do some reading on it, and found some interesting articles in the Wall Street Journal and the Atlantic and some various places on what workism is. But, I think workism is when our identity becomes in our work. And I think we live in a Western culture, a capitalistic culture, that I love. I mean, I think America is the greatest country on earth, and I'm grateful that I live here and for the opportunities here. But every culture has its idols. Every culture has its demons. And I think what makes our country beautiful also is often what sucks us into bad places. And so this idea of workism is that our work actually becomes who we are, and we lose our identity in our work. And I mean, that is the definition actually of idolatry, is rooting your identity or finding your identity and worth in something other than your creator. And so workism is something that I think we've got to be very, very careful. And work is a beautiful thing. Work was God's idea. If you go back to Genesis 2:15 says that the Lord God placed man in the garden to work it and keep it. So that's pre-fall. Work was God's idea. I mean, so work is not a bad thing. And I think sometimes when we see the abuse of work, we think, oh, well, we need to do less of it. Well, no, we just need to not worship it.
Yeah.
And so we need to engage it the way it was designed. So that was what that article was about, the idea of workism. So.
Yeah. Many people that you talk to, is this like one of the number one struggles for maybe even male entrepreneurs? And don't want to discount women too, but I hang out with a lot of male entrepreneurs, and it seems like this is probably one of the top challenges for them. Especially, and they don't know, and I was even wrapped up into this too, that I didn't know until I stepped out. And so I stepped out of our real estate business last year, and I still own the business, but I'm not in the day-to-day. My face isn't part of the company that much anymore. Right. They changed some of the core values, which is totally fine. But for the first 2 or 3 months after, I was kind of wandering, and like, the Israelites in the desert, I was like, I don't know what am I doing, and I didn't realize it until I was out of it.
No, I think it is one of the things that I don't know. I don't know if it's a guy thing or if it's just a human thing, but I know a lot of men do really wrestle with their identity getting wrapped up in their work. And there's, I don't want to say that's all bad. I mean, I think we were designed that way, right? But I think it was Tim Keller that said, when a good thing becomes an ultimate thing, then it becomes something that it was never intended to be, right? So, I mean, we can do that with our own kids, right? Yeah. Like I love my children. I love them dearly, but if they become the root of my identity, then I can take a good thing and I can elevate fatherhood to a level that it was never intended to play in my life. And so I think that's what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. I don't know if it's a Western Christian reality or not, just growing up in the high pressure cooker of American capitalism. But yeah, I think it's something that we've all got to wrestle with, because good things, it's a good thing, but if it becomes an ultimate thing, then it becomes broken.
Yeah. And I think that we get all these messages, and I'm big on just trying to be aware of all the messages that are coming at me each and every day. Like I don't like to be marketed to anymore. I'm like, I don't want to, I don't know. Like it's just funny. I'm kind of on this weird thing. Even my pantry, I put my food in glass jars now, most of it, because I don't like the boxes marketing to me anymore. But like you said, I get all these messages. But again, if you go on entrepreneurship with YouTube and start Googling it, you get a lot of these different messages where workism is really, it's like work 20 hours a day. That's how you make it. I don't remember the last 10 years of my life because, I don't know. And now I have everything. And so I guess you just really have to be careful of the messages.
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
What you bring in.
Totally. Yep.
Do you do that?
And
Like, are you very careful on what you take
I
in?
don't put my food in glass jars,
Okay.
but I do think that, I mean, that's a new one for me. That's a new one, but maybe I need to consider
I
that.
don't know. Thank you so much for checking out the Brett Snodgrass channel. If you like this video, please slam on that like button. And if you really like it, then subscribe to our channel here. And remember to leave us a comment below, and I'm going to try my hardest to reply to all the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is why I do what I do. Every single week, I come out with content that focuses on success, freedom, and living out your purpose. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.